Hi everybody and welcome to this video. I am currently 6 weeks postpartum and I figured it's time to sit down and film my delivery story. If you hear any noises from a little baby during this video, it's because Max is right down here joining me for this video. Lily is taking a nap, so I might glance at my monitor every now and then, but this was the perfect time to go ahead and share my story with you guys. So if you would follow me along my pregnancy updates, you would know that I was scheduled for a C-section on January 18th. In some of those videos, my update videos, I did talk about if we were going to do a VBAC or not, and we decided on the C-section. I was scheduled for a C-section because my first delivery with my daughter was an unplanned C-section, and so we decided to go ahead and stick with the C-section this time around. If you want any information on why we decided that or whatnot, then you can go back and watch those pregnancy update videos. I was on progesterone due to the fact that I had a preterm labor with my daughter. She was born at 35 weeks. And so the progesterone must have worked. I don't know because I didn't go into labor early. However, you do take the progesterone from week 17 to week 36, but I didn't start it until about my 20th week along in my pregnancy, and we stopped at 36 weeks. And I will say, not long after we stopped that, I did start having contractions. Nothing was consistent enough to warrant that I was in labor or that anything was happening. And when they do a C-section, they do schedule that at 39 weeks, and so from week 37-ish to 39, I was having some contractions. Also, because you're scheduled for a C-section, your doctor doesn't check you at any of your doctor's appointments. So I was never checked even when I was into the hospital. So I don't know if I was ever dilated or if anything was ever progressing. But again, my contractions were never consistent enough. They were definitely more painful than what Braxton Hicks would be. So we just woke up on the 18th and we went right into the hospital. Now, we woke up at 4 that morning because we had to be at the hospital at 5 a.m. And this time around, I was like, I'm going to do my hair, I'm going to do my makeup because I'm just having a C-section and I will look great for pictures. And I knew I was going to record that day, so I had it in my head how I wanted the day to go. It didn't go as planned, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. So I woke up that morning and I actually felt a little bit nauseous that morning, but we got ready. I couldn't eat or drink anything, so I got ready as normal, and then before we left the house, I ended up throwing up about 3 or 4 times, and I really think it was just nerves. I think I worked myself up and I just threw up. So I will say that I definitely thought through this process a lot more than I did with Lily, because Lily came at 35 weeks, it was unplanned, and then everything kind of progressed and I had to have a C-section. I didn't have enough time, I think, to think through what was really happening, or I was just naive, I don't know. But this time around, I definitely thought through everything, and I definitely think I worked myself up a lot throughout the day. But I was definitely a lot more nervous going around than I was the first time. Again, I think the first time around, it was all kind of sudden and I didn't have time to really grasp everything that was happening, I guess. So we left the house and we drove to the hospital. It was kind of weird, like, leaving. My mom and my brother were in town, so they stayed at the house with Lily while we were at the hospital. So it was kind of just really surreal just to, like, put our stuff in the car, you know, I'm not in labor, and just kind of get in the car and drive down the street to the hospital. And then we walked right into the hospital, checked in, and they kind of from there just had me change. I needed to pee in a cup, which I wasn't, I guess, prepared for, and so I couldn't right away, so that took some time. And they just kind of like put IVs in, they hooked me up to the monitors. They were definitely registering that I was having contractions, and they were enough contractions where, like, I could feel that it was coming on, and it was just more uncomfortable, like a mild pain, and then it would kind of go away. But they definitely were showing that I was having some consistent contractions, and they just kind of asked me questions, and it was a pretty chill couple of hours before they wheeled me back. Now, I do have footage from that day because we did record the couple days that we were at the hospital. I'm not showing you everything because, again, the way I thought stuff was going to be in my head didn't happen that way. And after the surgery, I was really out of it, but I'll get into that more later. But I do have footage from that morning of us walking in and kind of just capturing the moments with Andrew and I right before Max was born. So I will go ahead and show you guys some of that footage.
We made it. We're walking to the women's unit.
5 in the morning.
Ooh, look at that belly.
ready or not.
Yep. Here we are. Little Max.
He has no clue what's coming.
No clue.
No clue. I don't know if I have to pee. You want to take a picture of us when you do?
Yeah.
Are you recording?
Yeah. We just got in the room. This is where I'll be. Right there.
And it'll be right here.
Max's bed.
Totally different this time.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Okay, I gotta change and pee.
Changing and peeing. Bye-bye. Changing. Here she is. Woo!
My pretty gown.
That's so hot.
Flattering.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 5:15.
Little slippers. Yeah, almost 5:15.
He has no clue.
Yeah. He's in there.
He's resting right now.
She's supposed to pee, but she didn't pee.
I couldn't pee. I wasn't prepared to.
Uh-oh.
Give us
Not good. Maybe we'll have to come back later.
Give me 10 minutes. I'll have to pee.
Well, they tell you don't drink any water. I'm like, okay. You just,
And I
you
did
should
happen
pee.
to throw up before I came. I don't know if that's out of nerves or I don't know. I feel okay now. So I'm just not gonna mention it.
Yeah.
Threw up again.
What? No, you look beautiful. So they just told us we can't record in there, so
Just take pictures.
yeah, I'm gonna be snapping photos. Wink, wink. Ah, ah, ah.
You had good pictures last time.
Yeah.
I had faith in you.
We just survived a fire drill as well. So they say it was a drill. Could have been real life.
I don't think that's
And now she's just signing paperwork.
Call, don't fall.
Call, don't fall. What time is it? 6 o'clock. Oh man.
Baby's looking good. I am contracting, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah. She's seen big guy.
Okay, still recording.
About 15 minutes left. Right now we're just chilling. I'm chilling. Jen's chilling.
Trying to take a look at that.
Yeah.
Now, I did throw up a couple more times before we actually went into the procedure. Again, I think it was nerves. When they did give me my IV, the room was really hot and I did get really nauseous and throw up. So I do think it's a combination of I had nothing to eat and just kind of the atmosphere, and then again, I think just some nerves. So they were running on time. The doctor came in right before they took me back. He kind of went over everything and they took me on back. Again, it was scheduled for 7 in the morning, so I'm not exactly I'm not sure what time we actually went back there, but they took us on in. Now, Andrew can't go right into the surgery room with me right away. They kind of keep him in a separate room. He gets his kind of dress stuff on that they give him, and they wait until that I'm prepped and ready before they bring the husbands in. So it was a lot different this time because with my daughter, I was having pretty strong contractions, and so when they would give me the spinal block, I had to kind of wait in between contractions, where this time I wasn't. So, you know, again, I was more aware of what was going on, so they kind of like wheeled me into the room. I had to sit up, and then the anesthesiologist, they kind of give you like, they wipe on your back, I think they numb the area, and I think they stick you twice. I think they stick you with something to help numb the area, and then they give you the actual spinal block. And I honestly don't find that to be that painful. They explain it to feel like a like a being stung by a bee, which I've never been stung by a bee, but I would imagine, oh, that's what it feels like. So I definitely don't feel like it was that painful. It is uncomfortable. So they kind of give that to you, and then you kind of just feel like this warmth come over like the lower part of your body, and then they just kind of help you, you know, slide you back on the table. They lay you down, they put the sheet up, and they just start prepping you. And pretty quickly you start to feel numb, and it's a pretty wild feeling. So once I was prepped and ready, they had Andrew come on in, and he kind of sits up here. I'm laying strapped down like this, and he's kind of up here as they're doing everything. And they get started. And I did get nauseous during the procedure. I did ask Andrew because I couldn't remember if I threw up or not. He said I didn't, but I did get nauseous. Now, I remember with Lily, during the procedure, they asked me, you know, they said, are you nauseous? Let us know. And I was completely fine with hers. But this one, I did get nauseous, and they did kind of give me something just in case, but I apparently didn't throw up in time. But although you are numb from, like, I don't know if it's your, like, chest down or, like, your waist down. It has to be, like, right below your, like, boob area down. You do feel pressure, and you feel a lot of tugging, especially when they get to the point where they're about to pull the baby out. There was a lot of tugging, and it is the weirdest feeling because, like I said, you don't feel pain necessarily. Obviously you don't, but you do feel them, like, shifting your body around. I mean, I feel like they are not gentle when they start pulling that child out of you. But everything, I think, from the point that, like, they laid me down, kind of went smooth. You know, they didn't, like, indicate that anything was wrong. Yeah, and so I could feel that they started pulling Max, and then they just, you know, they pulled him on out. They got him to cry, and then they took him to the side where they clean him up, and they start doing, you know, the APGAR testing on him and whatever. And as soon as they put him to the side, the dad is allowed to go over there. So Andrew went right over there. You know, he got to clip the cord, and he gets to kind of stand over there the entire time that they're, like, testing him and working on him and whatnot. And then at that point they're kind of cleaning me up and putting me back together and everything hopefully back in its place where they found it, like a puzzle, I guess. I don't know. So once Max was all cleaned up and ready, they did bring him over to me, and I got to see him for the first time. And then they told me he was 8 pounds 1 ounce, and he was 20 1/4 inches long. So he was a big baby and a long baby, and not, like, during any of my appointments did they ever say, oh, they never gave me an estimate of what they thought he would weigh. But in my mind, I was not expecting an 8-pound baby. My daughter was 5 weeks early, so she was 4 pounds 11 ounces. So he was double her size. And so it was just like, what? An 8-pound baby? So he was born at 7:31 in the morning, and yes, he was 8 pounds 1 ounce and 20 1/4 inches long. Now, once they were done with me and done cleaning Max up, they took all 3 of us, me, Andrew, and the baby, together to the recovery room, which I didn't get to experience that with my daughter. She went kind of to the NICU fairly quickly afterwards, but this time we all got to be together, and so that was really nice. So Andrew pushed Max in his little bed, and then they wheeled me in my bed to the recovery room, where I think you spend about an hour, and they kind of just monitor you and how you're doing. And while we were there, I got to nurse Max fairly quickly, and he did great on, he latched really quickly on that. So that was a big plus. So I'm not sure after they do the surgery what kind of medication or pain meds they give you right away. I don't know. I should ask, but I hated it. I hated it so much. I was so out of it, and that's why, like, I'm not going to show you any footage of that day after the procedure, because every one I look at, I was nauseous most of the day afterwards, and I was just really, really out of it. And even when we were in the recovery room, I would start to doze off, and the nurses kept saying, like, telling me to, hey, Jen, make sure you take a deep breath. Like, they wouldn't let me doze off, and they were really concerned with me taking, like, deep breaths. And apparently it has something to do with, like, how you're breathing, because they gave me this little breathing thing I had to use while I was there, help prevent you from getting, like, pneumonia or sick or something. So they wouldn't let me sleep. Now, I think I probably experienced the same thing with Lily, but because she wasn't with me in the recovery room, I think I was able to kind of just relax and sleep it off, and I wasn't so aware of how out of it I was. So after the recovery room, they wheeled us to our own room, which is really nice that we had our own room and I didn't have to share with anybody. Not long after we had Max, I think Andrew went home and got Lily, or my mom came to the hospital with Lily. But at some point, Lily got to the hospital, and we do have a video of her meeting him for the first time. She wanted nothing to do with him. I think Andrew or my brother had Max to the side, and she sat with me first. You know, I was talking with her. We had the iPad. We were kind of watching some cartoons, and then we brought Max over. But she wanted nothing to do with him. She was like, no, 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 no. And at one point, like, picked up the iPad, and I had to, like, protect Max from getting hit in the face. But again, we have video of that. And I was so out of it. And at one point, like, I'm holding both kids, trying not to throw up. I'm looking at the footage, and I'm thinking, like, does no one in that room pick up on the fact that I am extremely nauseous? So finally, at one point, I'm like, can you guys take the kids? And I just look so out of it, and I hate it so much. And I remember saying to them, like, I don't like how I feel. I don't like how I feel. And I would be in, like, middle of a conversation with my mom, and I would just doze off for, like, I don't know, at the time it felt like a second, but maybe it was for a while, I don't know, and then I'd wake up, and I'd wake up aware that, like, I dozed off, and I would say, like, I would mention it, and because of that, I refused to take any pain meds. I think I was only taking ibuprofen at that point, but I wasn't taking, I think they give you, like, hydrocodone while you're in the hospital, but I refused to take anything because I didn't want to feel like that anymore. I just hated it so much. I felt like it ruined the moment of, you know, really enjoying, you know, being with my baby and people visiting and Lily coming. I hated it so much. And if I do it again, like, I'm going to be like, don't give me that. Whatever it is, I don't want it. I don't know. But I hated it, and I guess it is what it is. Now, I do remember some point afterwards, the doctor did come in and kind of talk about it, told us how everything went. I remember him saying that I did lose a little bit more blood than they anticipated. They did give me a special wristband. Now, I didn't get this with Lily, but they gave me a special wristband to kind of indicate your blood type because I am O negative. So they need to know that in case they need to give me blood, like, emergency purposes, I guess. I don't know. And then I do remember the next morning them taking my blood, and I asked the doctor why, and I guess they take your blood and they test it just I guess to see how much blood I had lost in the procedure. Again, that didn't happen with Lily, so I think it was just like a mild, I wouldn't say complication, but, you know, something that just kind of happened in the procedure, and so they just needed to see how much blood I had lost. They never gave me blood, so I'm figuring everything was fine. I do also remember the doctor saying something to me regarding the risks of a third pregnancy, and at the moment, you know, because I was so out of it, I was like, oh, okay. But then I remember the next day I was talking to my mom, and I was like, wait a minute, the doctor said something about a third pregnancy, you know, being risky or not, and I couldn't really remember the conversation. And so I asked Andrew, I was like, do you remember what the doctor said? And he's like, yeah. So he kind of, you know, told me everything that he said, and I was like, okay. But I waited until I think it was a 2 or 3 week checkup with my doctor to ask him exactly, like, what he said. And what he said is exactly what Andrea had told me, but I will get into that a little bit towards the end of the video. So I had him on a Monday, and we went home on Wednesday. They do test them for jaundice while they're in the hospital, and I think they said his numbers were around an 8. So he had a little bit of jaundice, but it was nothing that he needed to be treated for while we were in the hospital. And the next couple of days that we were in the hospital was kind of routine. I had him at 7:30 in the morning, and by like 5 or 6 o'clock that night, they wanted me up and moving, so they took my catheter out, they got me up and moving. And with Lily, they made me wait 24 hours, so it depends on the doctor. And so I kind of got up right away. I got up, I was moving. They wanted you to use the restroom and whatnot, and so I did do that. And because I was so out of it after my surgery, I again refused to take the medication. So 24 hours later, like, the nurse that was over me, she was like, "You're not on any real pain medicine at this point. You're just taking ibuprofen. Why? Like, don't you want something? And I was like, I was out of it. I don't want anything. So they kind of assured me that that won't happen. So I eventually started taking some of it, but I wasn't taking it that consistent, but just enough to help, because at this point now I'm sitting up and moving and doing things. Andrew did stay with me. We were there Monday night, Wednesday. My Andrew stayed with me the first night, and then the second night my mom stayed with me. So they were kind of throughout the day taking shifts with Lily back and forth. And so, so yeah, my mom was with me one night, and then Andrew was with me one night, and my mom was with me one night. We did our OBs do the circumcisions on the babies, which I thought was weird. I would figure like a pediatrician or something. So we did have to wait around for that to get done, and that finally got done on Wednesday morning, afternoon-ish. And then not long after that, I was discharged and we got to go home. Once you and baby are discharged from the hospital, they require, at least what they do here, that the baby sees a pediatrician within like 2 to 3 days after we leave the hospital. So we left on a Wednesday, and then we took him to the pediatrician on Friday. While we were there, the doctor did notice that he was a little bit yellow, a little more yellow than she would like, so she did send us down to have his lab work done. So they took his blood to test what they're called like the bilirubin levels in their blood to test for where his jaundice is at, and apparently they don't want you to get to like a level 20. Now, when they tested him on Tuesday at the hospital, he was at an 8. So they ended up calling me Friday afternoon and said he got up to a 16 when they tested him. And that's kind of a range they don't necessarily like. And so she asked me if my milk had come in. Now, my milk had come in Thursday night. Yeah, Thursday night. And so she said, okay, because the more like nutrition that they get will help fight the jaundice levels that they have, but because he was that high and my milk had just come in, she didn't want to run a risk of it getting higher to like a level 20, so the doctor told me to supplement with him. She said at least 1 to 1.5 or a half an ounce to an ounce, but I had known, being this is my second time around, really paying attention to my body and just being more confident as a mom this time around, I knew that my milk had just come in and I would be able to give him enough nutrition and he was feeding well leading up to that point. So I knew I could give him enough nutrition and not have to supplement. And so I made the call not to do the supplementing with him. So what I did is that every 2 hours on the dot we fed. And throughout the night, every 2 hours, I set my alarm clock, and every 2 hours I fed him to make sure he was getting enough. And yeah, and so he had to be tested the next day over the weekend. So because it was over the weekend and the pediatrician's office is closed, you have to go in through the urgent care that's connected to our doctor's office, and the on-call pediatrician has like the lab work. They went ahead and tested his blood. Then they called us back later that afternoon and said that his results had gone down a little bit, so they weren't going to send any like lighting stuff to the house. But they said, continue doing what you're doing. And so on Sunday, we went back in, they did the lab work, and they said it had dropped again. So it was going down at this point. So the on-call pediatrician said, we're going to clear him. And then if my pediatrician wanted to follow up with anything, then they would contact me on Monday. So his doctor did call on Monday and said that the results looked fine to her. And she said I didn't have to supplement anymore, but I never told her I wasn't doing that. But I just felt confident as a mom. Again, I made the right decision on how I wanted to do this, and I knew that I was consistent enough to make sure, like, I was feeding him every 2 hours, and that my milk supply was sufficient enough for him. So that worked out great for us. And the jaundice, like, he's fine now, but it's a good, like, month where they still have a little bit yellow in their eyes and a little bit on their face. It takes a while for that to kind of completely go away, but he's doing great now. So at my 2-week checkup with my doctor, I did again ask him what he saw regarding, it had to do with my uterus, what he saw with my uterus regarding a third pregnancy. And so what I have is a uterine window. Now I know, like, some people who've had a pretty bad uterine window, and so what a uterine window is it's mainly from having a C-section. where they kind of cut and stitch things up, it does stretch, and so he could almost see through my uterus and see the baby, which means that my uterus is pretty thin in that area. So he said if I was to have a third pregnancy, I would have a C-section at 38 weeks instead of 39 weeks to avoid any type of labor that would put pressure on my uterus, and the risk you have is your uterus rupturing. Also, he said to be aware that it will be a third time that they would have to cut there and sew you back up, and so the stitching back up would be a little bit more difficult because of how thin the area is. But he did say to me, you know, you can, he's not saying I can't have a third, but definitely to take into consideration the risks with having a third pregnancy. So he said mainly it's due to my first C-section, and then how he was placed in my, how he kind of sat in my uterus, that really stretched it out. So with that, I definitely think we made the best call in not having a VBAC, because I think that would have elevated the risk factor for me to for my uterus to rupture while I was in labor. And so I am confident with the decision that we made, Andrew and I made together, on how we were going to deliver, and I'm glad we went ahead with the C-section. And also with the C-section, you know, if I would have delivered, say, naturally and nothing really happened, they can't see that there's, you know, something wrong with your uterus. Where, you know, when they went in this time, they could see that. And I don't know if that was a connection to why I bled more than usual during the procedure or not. I don't know. But yeah, so we definitely have to take into consideration if we have a third kid or not. I'm a little sad about it because my first labor and delivery with my daughter didn't go as I planned or would have wanted. Now that has affected every, you know, affected this pregnancy and then my next pregnancy, if we decide to or not. And I don't like I want to make the decision of, no, I don't want any more kids. You know, it's kind of sad when it's something kind of out of my control that might determine whether we have more kids after this or not. If we have a third, I won't do it as close, but I don't want them that far apart. And I always had it in my mind that I would be done having kids at 35. That's just something personally I wanted to make sure. And so I had just turned 31, so I have a couple years here. So we'll see. We'll see if having another kid is something that we decide to go ahead and do. But we'll definitely be praying about it and just kind of weighing out the options, because I don't want anything to happen to me or the baby. So that is it for my delivery story with my son Max. I will be doing a video on my labor and delivery with my daughter, who is now 21 months old, just because that was a very different experience. So I kind of want it documented for myself, and then for you guys to kind of see the difference with her delivery and with his delivery. So please, if you're new to my channel, subscribe to my channel. I am now a mom of 2, and it's been a fun journey so far, and I'm going to continue documenting as we grow as a family. So if you're new, please subscribe. Thank you for watching this video, guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!